and I have like Welcome to Media Path. I'm Louise Palanker.
And I'm Fritz Coleman.
Today's Media Path will take us through the verdant hills and plains of media, hand-selected by Fritz and I to entertain, inform, and delight you. And then we'll venture down the scenic media path of our guest, Arnetia Walker, who has gifted us with talents which have contributed to a rich history of wonderful content. Her path begins with a starring role on Broadway at the age of 16. And today she's all the rage as Grandma on the HBO show Bookie. Plus, we have my friend Erika Kahn, an artist, designer, and activist and Holocaust survivor who is about to celebrate her 100th birthday. It's all coming right up. But first, Fritz, where has your media path taken you this week?
Well, you know, I thought I had consumed all I could consume about the O.J. Simpson story.
I thought we all had.
I lived through it while I was in the news business. I watched all the postmortems about the trial at the time. I viewed all the documentaries, but this doc is truly the best I've seen. It's called American Manhunt, O.J. Simpson. Part of the reason is you get the clarity of hindsight looking back over 30 years. Part of it is the information we hadn't been privy to at the time of the trial. And part of it, it's just a well-organized timeline and great commentary. There are 4 episodes. Episode 1 is called The Blood, which covers everything from the bloody paw prints of the dog that led to the dead bodies to blood evidence. Episode 2 is The Search. O.J. agrees to turn himself in but flees, and the world watches the Bronco chase. Episode 3 is called The Circus, which targets the prosecutors and Detective Mark Furman's racial history. Episode 4 is called The Verdict, which talks about the verdict, the aftermath, and the cultural significance of what was called the trial of the century. 30 years later, we find that even with the media coverage of the case, the revelations we didn't hear about, like disturbing patterns about O.J. and Nicole's relationship that people were aware of, but they never told anybody. Testimony from Skip Junis, who observed O.J. taking things out of his duffel bag at the airport and throwing them into the trash can. Many of the participants in the trial and just observers did not want race to play a role in the case, but defense attorney Johnny Cochran said race plays a part in everything in America. Even if you didn't agree with the verdict, doesn't matter. By the end of this series, you will probably agree that recent LA riots history back then, the racial elements introduced at the trial, the missteps by the prosecution, the verdict almost had to be what it was. I finally had to admit to myself there was a nostalgia quality of me watching this movie. So much of our attention in the news business and the energy toward the whole trial was just triggering in its memories. You watch it, though. It's an impressive historical document. American Manhunt, O.J. Simpson.
Sounds great. Sounds very good. I watched a doc called Studio One Forever. Studio One Forever is a doc you will find on various streaming platforms. It tells the story of West Hollywood's Studio One nightclub, which opened in 1974 during a time when being openly gay was fraught with shame and danger. Our friend Harlan Boll tells a harrowing story in the film of leaving the club and being hunted by a driver who hit and murdered Harlan's friend. But inside the club, people who had grown up around this great land of ours with zero public representation indicating that they may one day belong, be loved, be themselves, found exactly that at Studio One. 7 nights a week from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., the walls shook with the joyful thump of disco,
and the dance floor thumped
under the throngs of jubilant celebrants elating in the release of long-contained inhibitions. I was shook to learn about the club's racist door policy, an irony which instructs us that even threatened groups can be tribal in ways that are hateful. My God, if you gay white boys hungered for this safe space, then imagine how desperately a gay black kid needed it. The film features firsthand accounts from clubgoers who reunite in an effort to save the Studio One building from demolition in 2019. They are among the few who survived the AIDS plague which gutted the community in the 80s. Bartender Michael Koth shares a staff photo from 1980 and points out that of the 105 people pictured, only 2 are still here. It's important for all of us to understand the struggle and sacrifice of a generation of LGBTQ youth who came of age and fought for their rights and their lives in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, creating the greater acceptance and awareness that we enjoy today. Studio One Forever is a film that celebrates that history. You'll find it on various streaming platforms.
Where was Studio One?
It was like on Robertson, I think maybe a little south of Santa Monica
West
Boulevard.
Hollywood.
It was like one of those warehouse buildings. It feels like it was kind of close to like that design center sort of complex.
The Big Blue Whale
Yeah.
Design Center. Oh, the first time I ever heard of it.
Would you like us to introduce our
Let's
guest?
go. Arnetia's
let's do it.
tired of waiting.
Arnetia Walker was determined to become a performer from the moment she saw Doris Day sing Secret Love in Calamity Jane. Since then, Arnetia's secret love that lived inside of her has been shouted from the highest hills of Broadway to the golden daffodils of TV viewers who have enjoyed her in Nurses, Popular, and Bookie. Welcome to our show, Arnetia Walker.
Yay, Arnetia.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to talk to you today. You've had an amazing career.
Yeah, I want to start with talking about the high school of the performing arts, because we just picture kids singing and dancing up and down the hallways. But like, tell us about how you had to audition to get in and what it was like to go to school there.
Well, yeah, you did have to audition. I don't know if you still have to nowadays, probably so. But yeah, I had to audition. I lived up in the Bronx, the South Bronx at the time, which was, I had to take like 3 trains to get there.
Wow.
But that was nothing. That was nothing. I had a dream. Half of the curriculum was divided up. Half was studio, which was either dance or drama or music. I was a member of the drama department, and the other half was, the academics. And you had to keep both up. And we did do a lot of singing and dancing, though, especially during lunchtime.
Oh,
because when you walked in, there was a big room, and that served as the cafeteria. And so during lunch, after we'd eat lunch, we'd, push everything aside, and they put the music on, and we sing and dance. I was a singer also. So there was a guy named Charlie Abruzzo, who was a member of the music department. So we kind of got together and would, practice music, and we became kind of many celebrities there in the school.
I loved your line where you said you were known as a singer, but casting people said, but can she act? And then after you started to act, people said, but can she sing? So you were always having to prove yourself on either side of the fence there.
That's the share
that
problem.
Pretty much happened when I moved to LA.
Yeah.
Because when I, up until my early gigs were on Broadway, so that was singing and dancing. And after I got cast in the role of Raisin, and it came out here, came out to LA, I said, oh, I can do this. Palm trees, the weather's beautiful. And so I set about auditioning, and that's when I got, she can sing, but can she act?
Before Raisin, you're 16 years old, and how many kids are auditioning for this Broadway play with Hal Linden?
Oh my gosh. I think I was the only kid. It was Hal Linden, Zora Lampert, Franny Sternhagen. It's not a musical, but they put it to music. So they would stop the action, and then there were 4 singers, that we would come on and sing, and then the action would start again. We would be like, the thoughts.
So tell us the name of the play, and then what the story was about.
The Sign in Sidney Brustein's Window.
Mm-hmm.
It was about Sidney Brustein, he was an older guy that was probably having a midlife crisis, and remarkably, that play was written by Lorraine Hansberry.
Really?
Raisin in the Sun. Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that how one
Absolutely.
begat the other?
I don't know which came first. That's very interesting. For me,
No,
sign
that's
in
what I was saying
Sidney-
about you. You did the sign in Sidney Brustein's window, and then you did Raisin in the Sun after that.
Oh no! Then that closed after 3 days.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I'm giving up show business. And but here's a funny story that involves the School of Performing Arts. See, the School of Performing Arts were raising artists and not stars. So we were not allowed, there was a rule, you were not allowed to work professionally and go to that school.
Really?
Wow.
So when I got the role in the sign in Sidney Brustein's window, I screwed up my courage and I went to the head of the drama department, Jerome Eskow, and I said, Mr. Eskow, I got a part in a Broadway show and I'd like to do it. And he was like, well, Arnetia, you know what the rule is. And I said, yeah, Mr. Eskow, I do. And I'm prepared to leave school. And he was like, wait a minute. Let me talk to the board. So he did. And they made a deal with me that I had to maintain a B average in my academics and my studio. And I just have to keep up. And I did it. It was really, really hard, but I did it.
I'm always fascinated by how younger people are treated in all forms of show business. We've had guests on here who have talked about the nightmare of kids doing a sitcom when they're really young and how there's abuses on the set and all that sort of thing. How about the Broadway stage? How were you treated? How do they protect the welfare of younger people in theater?
Well, I was always the youngest in the cast. And I guess I guess I should preface that I was an orphan, so I really didn't have any. I did a lot on my own. When I think about the courage and the drive I had that young, so there was really, I was always surrounded by adults, but in the theater, everybody kind of takes care of everybody else. I would venture to say that it might be a bit different from from Hollywood,
A television set. Yep.
because I was wonderfully supported. And I worked with some great artists. Right after Sidney Brustein's window, I was cast in the chorus of Two Gentlemen of Verona, which was Joe Papp.
Oh, wow.
And it was a really big hit at that time. And what was in it? Raul Julia, Clifton Davis,
Oh, my
Jonelle
goodness.
Allen, Jeff Goldblum. Jeff was like 19.
Really?
Yeah. I'm just Dorian Harewood. I've worked with some just really wonderful artists.
And you did the first national touring company of Dreamgirls. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you played
Yes, I
all
did.
three parts.
Not the same night.
No, no, I know that of the legend of the
Well, practically not. No.
of
yeah.
the legendary
I mean-
Supremes like ladies, and you at different times played all three roles pretty good.
Yes, and because I was in the national company, I was in the international company, I was in the bus and truck, I was in the revival. So over a span of like 8 years, I did about 4 different companies of Dreamgirls. But it's really funny. When I first did the first company, I was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, doing a regional theater, and Michael Bennett called me.
What?
And he says, Arnetia, I want you to be in Dreamgirls for the LA company. At that point, he called it the LA company. He said, but I don't know what role I want you to play. So I want you to come to New York and learn all of them.
Oh,
All of the 3 dreams not Jennifer's part. That's the part I wanted to really
Oh, yeah.
learn.
Then you get the song.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So I did. I went to New York, and during the day, I was in rehearsal all day, pretty much with the choreographer and the assistant director, learning all the different parts. And then in the evening, I go to the theater and I'd watch the show. He decided when we got into rehearsals for the LA company, he decided that I was going to do the role of Laurel, which was the comedic role, which I loved, played by Loretta Devine, originated by her. She's all of those ladies were wonderful. And but I really loved the role of Effie too, and I asked Michael Bennett, I said, can I learn the role of Effie and maybe understudy her? And he's like, no, you're all wrong. So I was like, oh, okay. And then we went to LA, and it was a big hit, of course. And this one particular day, Lilius White, who was Jennifer's understudy, went to the Kennedy Center to sing for, I think it was Bush. I think George W. was the president then. And Jennifer Holliday was sick that day. So around 4:00 in the afternoon, my phone rings and it's Michael Bennett. Arnetia. It's like, yeah. You know how you always wanted to be Effie? I was like, yeah. Well, you're on tonight. Get over to the theater. What?
Wow.
So that's how I came to understudy the role of Effie. Well, I remember standing in the wings that night, and they, announced, ladies and gentlemen, the role of Effie will be played by Arnetia Walker, and the audience booed because everybody wanted to see Jennifer. And I was like,
rude.
Oh my gosh, I can't go out there. But that role and that play in itself is so well written. And Effie is such an underdog, and everybody loves the underdog, that by the time I finished singing, and I'm telling you, I had them.
You won them over.
know.
And the beauty of being told at 4 p.m. with a 7:30 showtime is that you didn't have time to dwell on it and be nervous for 3 weeks ahead of time. That's kind of a cool way to do it, right?
Right. I mean, I had no choice. Yeah. Plus, I used to be fearless or crazy.
No, I think you knew you had it. Just put me up there. I got this.
Right.
So how many years total were you involved in that show in its various forms?
Gee, I would think about 8 years, over a span of 8 years.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who's your favorite dream girl to play?
Oh, well, I think I loved Laurel. I loved Laurel. Effie is hard.
Okay.
I mean, none of them are easy because you're on the stage all the time and you're always singing. It's a recitative. So instead of speaking your lines, you sing your lines. And I mean, I tell you, doing that show 8 times a week, you lived
Lord.
for the show. You saved your voice. You didn't talk when you didn't have to talk. You went home and you got your rest. But I think Laurel was my favorite. And I think that was the wisdom of Michael Bennett, seeing, that was.
Was she the comic
That
part?
was the best for me.
Was she
yes,
the comic?
She was
That's
the comic.
right.
Yeah, and you're funny, and we know you're funny, and we've watched you. I think casting directors know, like, comedy is something people can either perform or not, because I think you have to be sort of funny in real life to have that timing, and you have it. So what was the first TV show you got where you really got to show off those chops?
Oh my gosh. Well, my first television parts, I was always the vamp. I remember doing a television pilot with Morris Day called Heart and Soul,
Really?
where he was, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I think it can be seen on YouTube. It's called
Okay.
Heart and Soul.
Okay, we'll find it.
This is after, the stardom of Prince, right? Because Morris Day was sort of born out of the whole Purple Rain. Morris Day and the time.
Oh, yeah. This was after Purple Rain.
Yeah. Cool.
And so what did you play?
I played Darnell, which was he was a record producer. He owned a record company, and I was his star. And he had made all of these promises to me. And Tisha Campbell, I think this was one of her first roles.
Wow.
She comes in with her father, James Avery,
Oh my
Wow.
God.
and she's going to be his next,
Protege. Yeah.
his protege. And so I walk in, and it's like, I really tell him off. Who's she? What? And I just like back him up and tell him off. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I have to tell you, I miss the old television schedules and processes. I mean, everything now to me is just so discombobulated.
Yeah.
I particularly loved the 3-camera schedule where you had a week to do an episode, and you had time to live with it.
Like on Nurses? On Nurses?
Oh yeah, Nurses. We did 3 seasons. Here's a story. Not many people know. Okay, we did 3 seasons of Nurses, right? And
We should tell people, first of all, Arnetia, that Nurses was a spinoff of Empty Nest, which was a spinoff of Golden Girls.
right, Wet Thomas, Wet Thomas.
So it's royalty.
Harris.
Yeah.
Royalty
And,
and great funny writers.
So after the 3rd season, doing that, you go on. We used to go on hiatus. Remember, we'd have like 5 months on, 7 months working and 5 months off, or 3. No, we'd go on hiatus for about 4 or 5 months over the summer. But anyway, and over that time, they would start gearing up for the, looking for the next shows and the next, cast. And there was a show that was coming out. It was a hospital show called ER. And they had asked if I would take second. They wanted me in the show, and they asked if I would take second position. I mean, if they could take second position, because they knew I was on Nurses, but we hadn't gotten picked up yet, right?
Okay, yeah.
The pickups were probably in May, June or something, and Nurses Whit Thomas would not let them take second position.
What does that mean to take second position? If they don't get picked up, you go into their...
If they don't get picked up, then I'm in that. I mean, and that's very special for a production to want you that much, to say, hey, we'll wait
To find out.
Wow.
You're our first choice. So that, and I'm sure they had a backup, but I wasn't able to do that, and Nurses didn't get picked up.
But why would
And
they
we
say
all
no to
know
that?
that ER went on to become a big hit.
So what was the skin off their teeth? Why would they say no to that?
I don't know. I mean, there were a couple of times when Janet Huber had left Fresh Prince, and Fresh Prince had asked if I could, come and do some spots. Well, they were interested in me taking over Nurses said no. I could understand that. We're in the middle of shooting. But then there was the role of Will's mother. And it would have meant me, I wasn't even asking for time off. It would have meant me doing 2 shows at once, which Heather Locklear was doing at the time.
Yeah.
There were a lot of actresses that were, and simultaneously.
And doesn't the network have a say in that? Like if they wanted you, or they loved who you were and the research they were doing about you, if they wanted you in 2 shows, they had no say in that. It was all about the production company.
Well, it was about the production company because that's who I was signed. I was signed to the production company, and the production company had a deal with the network. However, we were talking 2 different networks. Nurses was on NBC,
Right.
And I think
Fresh
Fresh
Prince
Prince was on.
I know they shot that on the NBC lot because I used to watch those kids grow up in the commissary when I worked over there.
Really?
Yes, I worked on the NBC lot in
So
Burbank.
that was an NBC show too?
Yes. Oh, no, I don't know.
Okay.
It was a Quincy Jones
Yeah,
production.
I don't know.
So they just kind of did. I don't know where it was, but all those kids, I remember growing up.
Where you taped it doesn't have anything to do with what
No, that's
yeah,
true.
so it could have been not. We could look it up. So you currently are on the show called Bookie, and your part is hilarious. You're so great in it. Tell us how you got that part and how you developed that character.
Well, I got that part through auditioning. I auditioned remotely, which I have been doing for 20-something years.
Really?
But anyway, when I read the script, I said, I know this person. This is my Aunt Susie. and that's what I did. And the Ken Miller, the casting director, he says, the minute he says, you slayed it, which, I said, hi, I'm Arnetia, and I'm reading the role of Grandma. He said, and then you did something, went right into that character. And we knew, he said, we knew immediately, this is our grandma.
Yeah, and Sebastian Maniscalco.
Sometimes it happens like that.
Yeah.
Sebastian Maniscalco is like the hottest comedian in America right now, too. It was good to see him get that break.
Yeah. Sebastian, he's a great guy, and he's been really, plugging at it a while.
Yep.
But he's done a lot of great things.
Oh, no, he has.
He had that movie. Did you see the movie?
I didn't see it, but
what was it called? My Father? About my father?
With Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, how'd you get Robert De Niro to be your father?
I knew he was going to be a bankable actor in The Green Book. He was so good in that. He's a very convincing actor. He was really good.
Yeah.
He was in the Green Book?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a great guy, and he's a really good actor. So, and the show is a Chuck Lorre show, so it's very funny.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff. And so you got to just go to town with her.
Yeah. And, Chuck is such a, Chuck and Nick, his partner, they're really wonderful too. They create such a nurturing, comfortable, kind environment. It's like everybody, the crew, everybody. You walk on one of their sets and, you feel supported and you feel, you just feel appreciated. Chuck Lorre is, the man is the
king of
incredible.
comedy. Yep.
He really is. He can spot if something isn't working. He can spot it right away and right up on it's right on spot. Okay, don't do that. Do this. And I'm grateful for my years in sitcom to be able to do that because we sometimes had to, turn those scenes around right in front of the audience.
Yeah.
After a scene, they come down from the writer's room with the, notes, a bunch of notes. And it's like, okay, we're changing this line to that and blah, blah, blah. And, and it's like, okay, now do it.
I don't want to get away from your theater, great theater accomplishments. You got to do Raisin in the Sun, the Lorraine Hansberry one. That's the one that put her on the map. Tell us about the production you did. And the term Raisin in the Sun, it comes from a Langston Hughes poem. And it was so beautiful. And the movie, Sidney Poitier, is one of the most breathtaking movies of all time. Talk about doing that great piece of work.
Well, Debbie Allen originated that role on Broadway. At the time, I was doing The Wiz, standing by for Stephanie Mills. Debbie left the show to come out to LA. I think she had gotten a show about cops or something. The folks from Raisin called me. How they knew about me, I don't know. But they called me in and I auditioned and I stepped right into that role. I did that for about, I want to say a couple of years.
Wow.
And that's what brought me out to LA.
Mm-hmm.
You did that show in LA?
It started in New York on Broadway.
Uh-huh.
So when Debbie left, I stepped in.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I think I did it on Broadway for, I don't know, maybe a year. And then we went out on tour. Mm-hmm. And it ended in LA. And I decided to stay. I said, I can do this. Yeah, I didn't know that it takes a long time. In LA, if they don't know you,
And I'll tell you, the irony of LA is it's the world's most talented show business people out here, but theater still has a tough time to get people to go out to see the theater. You look at the Mark Taper Forum, which is struggling right now. The Amundsen is doing all kinds of, pre-established hits from years past. I mean, it's really hard, and it shouldn't be. You have all this talent just sitting here waiting to work.
Right. I mean, the regional, does better. Mm-hmm. Like down in Orange County. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. I guess because it's always been known as a film.
Yeah. Plus, people don't want to get in their cars on the weekend and go to entertainment. They want to stay out of their cars on the weekend. It's not like you can hop on the subway or a train and go see a show and come home. Mm-hmm. It's just everything about it is wrong for the theater community. But so many of my friends have really, it's a tough
yeah,
place
it's not
to struggle.
Centralized, so there's not like a scene where you go and then you go out to dinner and you see your friends. It doesn't just have that sense of community that they have in Broadway. And other towns across America have, like maybe Chicago has more of like a scene. But I would like to hear about your cabaret act because I understand you're somewhat of a goddess, and I would like to hear how you put it together and where you perform it.
Well, okay. When I decided to stay out in LA, I said, okay, how am I going to pay my rent? I did get a job as a kid of the kingdom at Disneyland.
Really?
30 shows a week.
What?
I was one of the ones with the Mickey Mouse on my chest, and we sing and dance the zippity-doo-dah, all of those songs.
There you go.
And so at night, I would drive back to New York, drive back to LA. Uh-huh. And I started singing at a gay stand-up club, Greg's Blue Dot, which was on La Brea. Was it on La Brea? I think it was on La Brea or Highland. And then I would also, in the evenings, do the Rose Tattoo. Is the Rose Tattoo still there?
It's on Magnolia Boulevard in North Hollywood. Am I right about that?
The Rose Tattoo. Mm-hmm. Rock Hudson used to come and hear me sing.
What?
Who's the guy with Madam?
Waylon Flowers.
Yeah.
The puppet. Yeah,
Waylon Flowers and Madam.
He used to come in and hear me sing, and I, let him and Madam. He'd bring Madam, of course, and he'd sit in on the set. Stevie Wonder. Wow. Yeah. That, I don't know, how is the club scene, the cabaret scene in LA now? Because it was wonderful.
Well, it's thinner than it used to be. You have the Gardenia room used to be big, and the
I get that.
and the what's the one now, the Catalina's, and
I never did the
and that
Catalina.
place moved. I worked in there one night. It's different. It's a different time. They used to have 22 working theater companies in North Hollywood, and by working I mean equity waiver theaters and everything. Now it's really thinned out. And I think part of what it is they started enforcing payment for equity waiver actors. And if you're in a 99-seat theater or less, now they have to pay you. They never had to pay you before because people would come in and paint or sweep up or do something. They just wanted to act. Now they have to pay them, and it's putting some of these smaller theaters out of business.
Yeah. That's sad.
Are you able to?
I don't know how the kids that are coming up now. I mean, yes.
They're making YouTube videos. They don't have to go
Yeah,
working
that's a good
clubs.
point. That you can showcase yourself on TikTok. So, what is in your cabaret show? What are your showstoppers?
Oh, goodness. Well, let's see. Early on, I did a lot of the standards. And then after Dreamgirls, then as I went on, I would add, after doing Dreamgirls, I had a lot of, I would do some of that stuff. And then I did the scenes from the class struggle in Beverly Hills. So I sang on that soundtrack, Let's Misbehave. And, so just as I went along and did stuff.
Yeah.
I used to do some soundtracks too. I did Lady Blue. Do you remember Lady Blue?
Of course, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sang that soundtrack. That was me singing.
Let's talk about your film career. 1982, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Oh, that was my first film.
Who was your character?
Ever.
I was whore number 3. No, just kidding.
Listen, the audition I went to the audition. It was a dance audition. That was terrible. That was awful. And so I was so surprised when I got home, and Tony Stevens, who was the choreographer, it called me and said, "We'd like you to be in our our film." And I was like, "Huh, me?" But I was a dogette. So the dogettes, we moved. We were Dom DeLuise's sidekicks, but we mainly sang. We were singers. And then, of course, the ones with Dolly Parton, her girls, those ladies and guys were dancers. But yeah, I was, it was wonderful working with Dom DeLuise because the man was crazy. He was
one
so
of the
funny.
funniest people on the planet.
Do you have any good Dom or Dolly stories for us?
Most of my stuff was with Dom, so I wasn't in any scenes with Dolly. But yes, I remember we were in Texas, Austin, little town, and we had gone out to eat. And Dom, he was crazy. He took a sugar packet at the after we had paid the bill. He took a sugar packet and he opened it and emptied it on the table and made lines. And then he calls the waiter over and he says, "Waiter, waiter." And the waiter comes over and he says, and he points to the lines of sugar and says, "That's your tip."
Oh my God.
I mean, but you have to appreciate that this
very
was
funny.
such a very, conservative, part of town, little town. So
That's
yeah, he was.
Did you
he
shoot
was
the whole movie
hilarious.
in Austin? Where'd you shoot the bulk of the movie?
Yes, our scenes. Yes,
Wow.
yes, we did very, very much of it in Austin.
Well, we have a little game called IMDb Roulette, and the way it works is that I'll say the name of one of your IMDb credits, and you can tell us, if you can, who you played and what you remember about the experience.
Oh Lord!
Don't worry about it. You can't lose at this game. She knows everything. Don't worry about it.
So we're
Okay,
gonna
she'll tell me.
Yep.
So even though you were not allowed to play the Fresh Prince's mom, you were on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes. I don't remember the name of the character, but I played a IRS agent, and I seduced Carlton.
You seduced Carlton. How is that done?
With great finesse.
I know it sounds crazy, but it was funny. It was funny.
Oh, I'm sure. Her name was Samantha, so I don't know whether or not
Samantha, yeah, I don't remember that name.
I don't know
Yeah,
how successful
okay.
she was in her efforts, but you played Samantha. Okay, you were in Mad About You.
Yes. Mad About You. I don't remember the name of the character, and yeah.
She was I don't know if you got a name. In IMDb, you are credited as Jamie's coworker.
Yeah, Jamie was Helen Hunt, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Don't remember or don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue. Yeah, I played this mother that was just terrible to her daughter. I don't remember the name of the character, but I remember working with Jimmy Schmidt and what was Dennis
Franz. Dennis Franz.
Dennis France.
Yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful working with both of them. My daughter ends up, a very tolerant mother, and my daughter ends up committing suicide. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, that's sad. Okay, the character name was Thelma Morris.
Pardon me.
Okay, that's right, Miss Morris.
According to IMDb, you were in Living Single.
Oh, living. Oh, yeah, that's right. I was Reverend Porter's wife. That was the Reverend's wife. Was it Porter, the last name?
I have Mrs. Taylor, so I don't.
Mrs. Taylor. Okay, Reverend Taylor. So I was the Reverend's wife.
Okay. Was that fun?
Yes, that was fun. That was fun.
And who were you working with on that set?
Well, I mean, pretty much all of them.
Queen Latifah.
All of this, Kim and Queen Latifah and who else was in there?
Kim
The
Fields.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim Fields.
So yeah, but the one of the ones that I really, because I did about maybe 3 or 4 episodes guesting, but I remember one when Cece Winans was
Oh, my
on
goodness.
it.
Seriously?
Yeah, and
Was she allowed to sing?
So I was in a scene with her. She sang.
Oh,
Yep.
She sang, and Kim Fields was jealous and wanted to. I mean, her character, not Kim herself, but her character, was wanted to be the head of the chorus, and she couldn't sing. And so Cece was like, "Well, let me show you how that should be." And then, Cece would, sang the part for her, and Kim looked at her like, yeah, wow, I'm the star here.
that's awesome. All right. And then we have Popular.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Popular. I played the teacher. I don't remember her name.
Ms. Ross.
What was her name?
Ms. Ross.
Miss Ross. That's right. Miss Ross. And I did a few of those. And that was fun. That was quite fun. And it was at the beginning of many of their careers. Leslie, I remember, and those guys were great. They were young, starting out. I was their teacher.
So would you give them advice and off the set, backstage, would you give those kids advice? Because you had been them.
No, not unless they asked. Yeah. Because you know what? Everybody's road is different. Everybody has a different path,
Yeah.
you know?
Let's
It
talk
would be
about your road.
wonderful if,
Let's talk about your road. Let's talk about Columbus, Ohio before all this started. Tell us about that.
Columbus, Georgia.
Georgia, I'm sorry, yes.
You mean where I was born?
Yes, talk about that.
Well, like I said, mentioned earlier, I was orphaned very early in life, like as a baby. Never knew who my dad was, so I went to live with my mother's sister, my Aunt Susie, who was quite a bit older. And of course, I spent a lot of time by myself. And when I say by myself, there were other adults. It was like a village. Other people looked out for the kids because she was off taking care of white children,
Oh boy. Yeah.
So, well, I mean, that's how it was.
Well, you are, because of that, you are a great American success story. Look at all that you've accomplished and who you've become under tough circumstances to start. That's amazing. And now you have Trevor, your son.
Now I have Trevor.
Writer,
Yes.
director, a show business. Tell me about Trevor without revealing too much
Well,
of his personal
he
life.
is a writer. He is a budding filmmaker. I think he's a very good writer. And he's fiercely independent. He's one of these, I've got to do it on my own. I'm like, hey, go for it, But yeah, right now he works at BuzzFeed.
Oh wow.
But yeah, he's
So, as somebody in show business who's felt all the bruises and knocks and bumps of show business, are you supportive of his career, or do you say, "Ooh, become a barber or something"? Just do anything other than show business.
no.
Good.
Well, he doesn't want to be an actor. So, I mean, he's terribly creative. I mean, really not terribly. He's very creative.
Wonderfully.
This kid has been watching movies since he was, a toddler. I remember when Jurassic Park was out, it was on television, and he must have been like 2 or 3. And he's like, trained, staring at the television and these monsters. And so Elliot and I, we happened to, realize, oh, the baby's looking at Jurassic Park. That's probably not, appropriate. So we turned it off and he threw a fit.
Wow.
And we were like, what's wrong with him? So we turned it back on and it was like, oh, okay. So he's always been able to look at a film and in a much deeper way than just, what's on the screen.
Well, in a
front of
perfect
him.
world, he'd be able to give his mom some work. So let's develop this guy right away.
So, but you're writing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You're writing a script with your husband.
Oh, which one is that?
I'm
Was
not
that
sure.
Age-
this is just
Age
according to the internet. It could be subject
well,
to.
that was
yeah.
a while ago.
Uh-huh.
And I write, on my own.
Mm-hmm.
What I've been really doing lately?
Tell me.
One of my passions that I never, ever realized was cooking.
Ah.
So I am putting together a cooking show that I'm going to put on my own YouTube channel
Okay.
called Nisha's World of Flavor.
Ooh, I love.
Because in my travels, I have collected many cookbooks and, of course, frequented many restaurants and tasted many dishes from different cultures. And I just, try and, see how I can make them healthier and keep them keep the flavor, or even just, dishes from my culture that aren't notorious for being the healthiest, but it's like, yeah, how can you make collard greens, flavorful without all of the fat and the meat and so I do
Great
things
idea.
like that. And I've been posting on TikTok.
You
mentioned
have
been. Girl.
earlier.
You got to do
Okay,
that.
Yeah.
we'll put a link to that in our show notes. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have any television projects coming up in the near future we might know about?
No, not really. Not really. Things have been pretty quiet, especially since
the strike?
The strike. Yeah. Now,
Well, if your YouTube channel
what I
takes
have
off,
been very involved with in the past year was doing a lot of, trying to get people out to vote. I'm very active.
God bless you. It may not be
And-
any more important than it is right now. Keep doing it
Yeah.
because we just need it so
Yes.
desperately now.
Yeah, it's vital. Thank you so
So
much.
that's another thing I do is advocacy for,
Thank
us
you.
being involved.
Thank you. That's
We appreciate
That's
that.
essential. We really, everybody listening, whatever you can do well, do a little bit. Just
We
do
have a
what you
guest
can.
coming up next, Nish, that is
Okay.
100 years old. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's a Democratic activist and she
She writes postcards.
She writes postcards. She goes door to door.
She's been active her whole life. So we all need to do what we can. I think it needs to be a part of everyone's life. If you can donate, donate. If you can write a postcard, write a postcard. If you can do advocacy, if you can call representatives, let your voice be heard, or just go to a meeting because you'll get inspired by everyone around you who has the same urgent concerns. We need to pull
Right.
together.
And it starts on the local level.
Politics.
So, be involved in the people that are running for council and sheriff and judges and all of that.
There's so much
know.
that you can do, even just joining a Zoom call, because the Zoom calls have had like 70,000 participants. The Zoom calls have been crazy. So you don't even have to leave your house to get involved in politics. It's anywhere you want to look. It's on TikTok. It's everywhere. So
Right.
I appreciate you.
And I'm a member of the Indivisibles. So that's
yeah.
a great group to,
So I'm a member of Indivisible in Santa
support.
Barbara. You're Indivisible Las Vegas. So look for Indivisible in your area, and that's a great grassroots level organization to just get yourself started. If you know you want to do something but you're not sure what to do, Indivisible is wonderful.
And I'm loving these town hall meetings
Yeah.
where people are yelling at their Congress people. It's fantastic.
Why do they still seem like they're not that bothered?
Because they have their talking points.
Legislators.
If you jump from town hall to town hall to town hall, on the Republican side, they all have the same talking points, and it's not working for them any longer.
Not
We'll see.
working. Right.
Yeah.
I think the midterms are going to be the great cleansing of all time.
All right, we're going to jump off and have.
I hope so. If anybody wants to go to my website and see, my body of work, it's arnetiawalker.com. And also on TikTok, I'm at Trev's Mom 2. And my YouTube will be Nisha's World of Flavor. So that one's not there yet.
But it's coming.
I'm working on that one.
All right, well, just thank you so much for joining us. We
Great
love talking with
conversation,
you.
Nisha. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for coming along down the media path, and however you have found your way to us, we would love for you to like and subscribe and give us a nice review because as creators, it is our appointed duty to ask you to do that. You may also want to find us on Instagram and Blue Sky where we are at Media Path Pod, and on Facebook where our show page is Media Path Podcast and our Facebook group is Media Path with Fritz and Wheezy Podcast Community. If you are listening to our show, we are also a video podcast on YouTube at Media Path Podcast. You can write to us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. My TikTok is Louise Palanker, where I post behind-the-scenes peeks and clips from the show. And Fritz's TikTok is Fritz Coleman Comedy. He posts stand-up clips and popular dance crazes. Our website is mediapathpodcast.com. There you can binge episodes and our spicy newsletter. Thank you so much. On with the rest of the show. Erika Kahn was born in Berlin, Germany in 1925. She is an artist, a designer, a teacher. She will turn 100 years old in April, and at the age of 13, she escaped the Nazi regime. Her entire extended family was murdered in Auschwitz. Erika, thank you for joining us. You've been politically active your whole life, your whole adult life, and we want to hear, you came to us with a story. We'd love to hear it.
Thank you very much. And I would like to tell you about the similarities of the Hitler world and the Trump world.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, but there is a similarity.
Okay.
When I was 8 years old, my brother was 3, Irvin, our nanny, because my mother worked in my father's office, took us to the park with a sled. It was winter, right after Hitler's lift to being a chancellor for Germany in January 1933. And that's when I was 8 years old. Well, we went and had a wonderful afternoon in the snow in the park. And as we went home through the village of our town, to which we had just recently moved, because my father didn't want to live in the city anymore because of other things that happened there. I saw a store. The windows were broken already. Some merchandise was lying on the ground. And the brown store Nazis were pushing people out, holding some very tight on their arm and forcing them out of the store, told others not to dare to come into the store. Well, I'd never seen anything like it, and I was horrified. And that was the very beginning when I saw how it then developed further, more and more and more, because he was so audacious, and every little bit led him to something else and more and more. He wanted to kill all the Jews in Europe, everyone, and he almost succeeded. He almost succeeded because he invaded all the countries in Europe, in Holland, in Belgium, in Sweden, in Norway, and in Denmark, and certainly in Germany. And all those many Jews that he could, he would eliminate. My grandparents, too, in Auschwitz. In any case, I was a little girl, and I came home. I was horrified by what I saw. It was really awful to see the store all damaged and merchandise out on the street, and the windows broken, and the people herded out by a strong-armed people. It is something that I never forgotten. Even though I'm almost 100, this is very much in my mind. And that is how similarity between Hitler and Trump and the audacity to move forward and destroy everything they can is just exactly what happened before. And I never thought in all this time that will return.
We have so much to learn from your generation and people of your experience. And I worry so much, Erika, that we might be losing the lesson that you people lived through. All of the pre-war feelings, the way the media was chastised and shut down.
The scapegoating.
The drift toward authoritarianism. We're too young, most of us, to have experienced that, and we might be losing the lessons that you have so much to teach us. And do you feel? I mean, the Holocaust survivors have a mantra: never forget. Do you feel like we're forgetting? How is the memory continuing?
Well, they say never forget, but so many people have no idea. They've been free in this country. They have had a very good life. If they haven't had riches, but they've had a very good and free life, and they're not used to anything like this. To be told to or imprisoned when they raise their voices, which I hope they will do, because I mean this country has a history of having a democracy for so long, for over 200 years. And I think that is the thing that is so much stronger than was in Germany. First of all, Germany was much smaller, maybe as large as one of the states over here. And they just didn't have the experience either. They didn't know and thought all of this was going to go away. When I reported the news that I had seen, my father said, "Oh, the police won't permit it. It just won't go on. It will just go away." Well, it never did. So anyway, I feel that this country, with its resources of many people who seem to start to wake up to the fact that they have to open their mouth and they have to say, they have to come back and issue warnings, is doing it. Right now, I think we're slowly starting, and I hope it will go much more. I hope you won't be successful.
Well, we talk about never forget, and then you remind us there's some people that never knew in the first place, especially when they are banning books, censoring information. I thought that every school child read the Diary of Anne Frank. I thought the Holocaust was taught. I thought civil rights were taught. I thought we all understood that we want to open our hearts to people that look different or worship different. Yeah, that's what I always thought was the case. This decline into the madness of scapegoating, of blaming, of this victimhood, and that it's someone else's fault that I'm not doing well. I thought that was the mistake of your generation. I didn't understand that it's just human nature, that we will devolve into that if we don't put systems in place to protect against it. It's scary. We have to always remember, and we have to be reminded that good people have a failure of imagination as to how bad things can get, or how the brutality of behavior to which some people are capable.
And I think we none of us were aware of the delicacy of democracy, and we're really getting a taste of that now. But just tell us what we should do. You've been a Democratic activist. You've had all this amazing experience. What can we do at this moment? We don't have a majority in the House or the Senate. What can you offer to people as advice on how to push back on this?
I think very important is what has recently started. The communities, the states, the different organizations are trying to get their members out to march, which I did for many different occasions in the past. And I think it's important for people to come together and to speak up, to protest as they are doing. So many thousands of people came to the Treasury because they were very upset about that muddling around by Musk in our financial matters. I think that woke a lot of people up to demonstrate, and that's, of course, I think will be a strong force.
Yes, to demonstrate and to go to the town halls, especially if your district is represented by a Republican and he's just spouting these talking points.
The Republicans need to wake up too.
They do. But there's a lot of people that are now being personally impacted, and that's when they speak up. They're not really that concerned about others, but they are concerned about themselves. So we have to hit them wherever their heart is. If it's going to take until it affects you personally, fine. We'll take your support. We'll take your activism. I'm not interested in scolding anybody and saying, how could you vote for him in the first place? I'm not interested. If you've been burned, we will embrace you. Come along. We're just trying to save our democracy and save the world. And I thought maybe you could, by way of illustration, You know, when you see that some people are online watching people getting rounded up and celebrating it, like, yes, we're getting all the immigrants out. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And like celebrating someone else's pain. Maybe you could tell the story, Erika, of when you were a schoolgirl and the teacher brought you in front of the class to show them that you were different by virtue of your religious background. Tell that story, and then tell us a little bit about how you escaped Germany.
You remember that, do you?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you wanted to know how it came that I came to America? Well, my father and mother were divorced, and my father was out of Germany, and he was in London, where he had a brother who had a family, lived there. And so my father went to London, went to be with his brother and family. And he had a new wife, and the new wife found a distant cousin who was a banker in San Francisco and could give her an affidavit, in other words, to sponsor her to come to America. And also, she could bring her family. And since she had no children, I was became her child. And when he had that permission, when he had that visa to come to America, he was in London and he wanted me to come from Germany to London, which I did. Went to my mother, and my grandparents came from Holland. My mother was originally from Holland, and my grandparents came from Holland to take me to the train station. And I went to the train, got into the train. My grandfather helped me with a suitcase. Everybody could only take one suitcase out of Germany. Money I didn't have. And you could only take, I think, was 10 marks. That would have been $3. That's the whole thing that you could take. And I left my grandparents standing by the side of the train and watched them as the steam covered them up. And I knew at that moment that I will never see them again, which was true. And my mother had only 2 weeks that she was allowed to stay in Germany, because she got a letter that told her she was an alien and she had no business in Germany and she had to leave within 2 weeks. She was desperate and she called my grandparents in Rotterdam, where they lived, and my grandmother called the court, the old Queen Wilhelmina, and being that the Netherlands is very small and people can reach people in the court, in their government.
Wow.
And she did, and she got the permission for my mother to come to Holland. But my mother decided after a little while that she didn't want to stay there. She'd rather go and try to go where her brother was. He was in North Africa, in Tangier, and there was the French government. And being that he had a very good business, he managed to get a permission for her to come to Tangier and to stay with him, with his family in North Africa, until the time she got a visa too. And she did, because my grandfather had a business in Holland, and he had a secretary in it who married the cashier of the Holland America lines and lived in New Jersey, and sent her an affidavit, which is so tells, of course, that they would support her if in case they needed to. And so they could do that. And that's how she came to America. Life in America was not easy for those that came. It wasn't easy. It was very difficult.
So
but
everybody
that's
was
good
scrambling.
For another subject.
Everybody was scrambling to get out. It was a matter of who would let you in. And if your mom had gone to Holland, she may have lost her life there too, because the Nazis invaded, and that's how Anne Frank lost her life. So Holland wasn't such a safe place for Jews.
Erika, I just want to ask you one further question. When I asked you how people can push back and protest and raise their voices about the current situation, that would be helpful. Were German citizens able to do that as the Third Reich was? That's what I was going to say. There was no recourse for them. They just had to go along.
They didn't. I mean, as far as I know, there wasn't a movement of that kind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
because at that time, the Nazis would have been too strong, and they would have just arrested them all and just taken them to camp. Maybe that's what happened.
They would
I
come to
never
your
saw
house
any
if they had a record that you hadn't joined the Nazi party. They would come knocking on your door. You had to enroll your children in Nazi youth. There really was no escaping it for anybody. You had to. Anybody that was resisting, like people in the White Rose, those people were murdered publicly.
Well, yes, that was a basically very small situation. And of course, the leaders from it were taken. Her name was Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
Sophie and her brother. Sophie was executed. And that's what happened. It was just too small and didn't go anywhere. But here, with mobs and thousands of people, and hopefully the Congress, the Democrats and the Republicans will start.
So you remain, Erika,
because there must be some Republicans that don't like what's going on.
So you remain hopeful, Erika?
Yes.
I love hearing that.
To be together, to keep together, and to keep hope alive.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Stay strong and keep hope alive.
Keep hope.
And work towards it.
Yes, be part of the solution.
We are stronger here in America.
We are. I love hearing that.
The democracy in America is much older and stronger than what was in Germany. Germany was a defeated country, don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
And people were not only poor, but many, many, many were killed in the First World War.
Mm-hmm.
And many, many were veterans that were crumbling. I saw them on wagons like in that Black Plague.
In the plague.
I forget the name just now. But you saw them like on wagons when they had no legs and they couldn't walk.
Oh.
But they stirred them with their hands in a way. With
I see.
Wheels.
They were disabled veterans. Yeah.
And it was a very poor country and very defeated and very sad in many ways. This country really was left recently, just before the election, in great strength. It had a very high stock market. It did very well. Maybe the eggs were a little expensive. Well, they're going to get more expensive.
Yeah, that's right. And we were thought of well in the world. Our standing among our allies and the rest of the planet was much higher about a year ago. Now we're a joke.
So we've gone from but her emails to but the eggs. We can do better than this. We're strong. We're stronger than this, and I agree with you, Erika.
Well, the eggs,
Yes, that
I remember that whenever I went somewhere, I would see a line somewhere, and that whenever I saw a line, I went over there and stood on line with the rest of them, and you got an egg, and the egg was stamped Egypt or China. And that's the only egg you got.
Wow.
Or
In Germany?
You got a quarter or an eighth of a pound of coffee, which people needed and wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Or an eighth of a pound of margarine instead of butter. That's how poor the country was.
That's how poor it was.
Well, and plus, Hitler was able to take over because Germany's self-esteem was so low at the end of World War I. He could sort of fluff them up a little bit and make them feel better about themselves, and they were ripe.
They wanted a leader.
Yeah.
They wanted a leader, and they called him Führer, which means leader. They thought that would make it better.
You have to be
I can't
careful.
tell you what an honor it is to talk to you, Erika. I think it's important that everybody hear your story. You're an amazing spokesperson for your generation, and we just appreciate your political activism, and it probably has something to do with your longevity. You're active and see how important it is. You'll just keep going. Good for you. Don't stop.
Yes, we keep going.
Yep.
We keep going.
We're strong.
All right. Thank you, Erika. I'll see you for lunch on Saturday. I'm going to read our closing credits.
Right.
We want to thank our guests, Erika Kahn and Arnetia Walker. Our team includes producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Bill Filipiak, Mason Brown, Raf Rusek, Jordan Reyes, Haley Freight, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I'm Louise Palenker here with Fritz Coleman. Be well and wise, take care of each other, and we will see you along the media path. That was awesome, Erika.
That was so amazing, Erika. We could listen to you talk for a long time. So much to learn from you. Keep it up, my darling. Be well and safe.
Oh, you want to
You'll
take
be
a
well
picture with
too.
Erika?
I wish you
All right.
all the best.